for that. When you stimulate your taste buds with sweetness, the brain translates that as entry of energy into the body. Since the blood sugar has to have an optimum level of around 120 or 110 or depending, all of a sudden the brain says a whole pile of sugar is coming. What am I supposed to do with that? Instructs the liver not to manufacture sugar, but to store it. And how does liver store sugar? It converts it into glycogen or fat. Okay? Within 90 minutes, the sugar that was promised in the sweetness is nowhere to be found. The sugar level in the blood is dropping. The brain senses this immediately. Both brain and the liver panic, and they force the person to go and eat. Make good the promise of more energy in the body. And it's been shown both in animal models and in humans that within 90 minutes of taking a dose of aspartame, the person or the animal eats, and eats infinitely more than normal. That is how people grow fat, because of this sweetness. But that is not the only problem of aspartame. It has been implicated in brain tumors, in breast tumors. It causes seizures. I have a neighbor, a fine young man, a lawyer. All of a sudden his wife came home in the evening and discovered that he had a seizure. He was flat on the floor, taken to the hospital. 3 days of investigations, and they could not find anything wrong with him except that he had a seizure. He was given a whole lot of medications. When he came home, I said, I was concerned. I said, do you take this artificial sweetener? He said, why? I said, well, that can cause seizures. He said, you know, it's funny, we don't take anything other than these artificial sweeteners. They take their tea, their coffee, they cook with it, they add it to everything that requires sweetness. And that is how exactly, they were using a lot of aspartame every day. And that's how he developed seizures. I had a patient who got to me. I don't practice medicine anymore, but people come back to me and explain how they found the information that I share with them. One of them reported that he developed a tremendous sense of smell, that everything was driving him crazy. He could smell everything, and he was getting sick most of the time until he realized that he was taking aspartame, and he cut it out, and the excessive sense of smell disappeared. Optic nerve damage. I heard someone talking about optic neuritis or macular degeneration. Beware. This is part of the complications of aspartame, and the reason for that is when aspartame is being metabolized in the gut, it breaks down into aspartate, which is an amino acid. Aspartate is a neurotransmitter that acts directly on the brain cells. Other neurotransmitters have to be converted to another amine from the amino acid before they are active. This aspartame is directly active. It doesn't need conversion. And it has direct effect on the reproductive hormones, centers that deal with the reproductive organs. The other thing is phenylalanine, which is another neurotransmitter. But the byproduct of the metabolism is formaldehyde, methyl alcohol, which is a neurotoxic substance. All of you know that you can't take with alcohol. Well, that is exactly what you're taking when you take aspartame. Did you all understand this?
Yes.
Are we going to take artificial sweeteners anymore? No, seriously, take this information very seriously. I'm not selling you anything. I'm sharing a piece of information with you. Yes, go ahead.
Do you have any references for this?
Yes, I have.
Can I get some?
Yes, later on. Yes.
Decaffeinated beverages better?
Sorry?
Decaffeinated.
There is no such thing as decaffeinated. It's partially decaffeinated.
You drink a lot of decaffeinated beverages.
Then imagine for every cup of whatever it is, you're taking 30% or 40% less caffeine. It's not decaffeinated, it's partially decaffeinated. I don't know of any decaffeinated beverages. I mean, decaffeinated coffee, talking about, or tea. A lot of beverages are produced, they say there's no caffeine. But then again, there are a lot of beverages that are now being produced, and clearly they're adding caffeine to it. And they're advocating for children as well. This is my...
Aspartame also causes hives.
it does, yes.
Skin rash.
Yes, it does a whole lot of things. Yes, thank you. This is an abstract of my presentation at the 3rd Interscience World Conference on Inflammation. I'm a recognized person for my views on the role of histamine in the body. So from now on, I'm going to talk about histamine so that you realize that I've gone through the mill, and I was invited to make this presentation by the scientific secretariat of the conference, and it was a world conference, and so you have to pay attention to what I tell you about histamine. If the pharmaceutical industry and doctors don't, you, the patients or people, have to accept this. This is a single cell child of the future. Before the ovum, which is now fertilized, or the egg that's being fertilized, before it splits into two cells, it has the power to release histamine.
Could you define histamine?
Histamine is a neurotransmitter in the brain that is in charge of the water regulation of the body. It is the wet nurse. It is the wet nurse of all growing species. It maintains the cation exchange. It brings the circulation to the area. It opens the gates of the cell membrane so that food and other ingredients go into the cell. So histamine is a growth hormone. It's a water regulator, and it is a most vital element to your survival. It's a most vital element to your survival. You cannot survive without histamine. If histamine was not to be available in your body and someone could stop manufacture of histamine, you will die practically within minutes. So histamine is the most important element to your survival, believe me. This has to manufacture histamine because histamine has to be there to open its gates, allow water in because it's a water regulator, it's electrolyte regulator to push potassium in there and get the sodium that might have gone in there out and bring enough fluid for this to become a single cell, separate and become a single cell. Eventually go 9 trillion times of division before a baby is born. This is a very important element, histamine. Now, water regulation of the body from infancy, from a single cell, to when the child is born, to when it's 18 years old, is under the control of two main hormones, histamine, which is a neurotransmitter, and also growth hormone, which is still under control of histamine when it's being produced. Histamine and serotonin, really. So these two elements regulate the water intake of the body until